In this video, I'm going to show you how to change the fuel injection dampers in this Nissan Pathfinder. This has the 3.5 liter V6. Should be the same for just about every engine just like that. Now these things go bad and they cause like a ticking or knocking sound. And you might think there's something wrong with the engine or something wrong with the pistons or the crankshaft, but it's actually the fuel injection dampers. Now usually if you're standing outside the car, you don't hear anything. But if you're inside the car, you hear that ticking or knocking sound. Well, in this video, I'll show you step by step on how to replace them. Now here's my first helpful tip. If you just use the hood prop rod, this hood doesn't open very far, but I have this adjustable prop rod right here, and I have the hood open almost 1.5 feet higher than normal. It gives you a little more space and light when you're working on the engine. First thing we need to do is remove this box right here. You have a bolt right here and here. They're both 10 millimeter. We'll go ahead and remove those. Just gonna lift up, wiggle a little bit, and pull this right out. Now we need to remove the engine cover. Got 2 bolts right here. Those are 10 millimeter. And if you come down here, we have one there and one there. So 4 10 millimeter bolts to remove this engine cover. Do this hose clamp right here. Just squeeze the clamp together, slide it back, and then it's going to be helpful for you to twist this hose and pull at the same time. And now we need to remove this upper air box. So we're going to loosen that screw right there, that hose clamp, and then you're going to disconnect the mass airflow sensor, and then there's a little wire clip on the back side that we'll undo, and then we'll remove that air box. And this is the section that we're removing. So now with that air box out of the way, we can remove the throttle body, which is this right here. Now we're going to leave everything connected to the throttle body. We're just going to remove the 4 5 millimeter bolts holding the throttle body on. So we'll take all the bolts out and just kind of lean this over. And now the throttle body is going to kind of want to stay in your way because we have everything connected, so it wants to go back into position. So what I like to do is I just put a couple zip ties around there. You can hook it on just about anything, just enough to keep it out of our way. Connect this hose right here. This right here. And then that harness we just disconnected, it's attached right here. You got to go underneath and kind of squeeze and pull at the same time to get that out of that slot. Move this section right here. So we have a 10 millimeter screw here, 10 millimeter screw here. Slide up this hose clamp, and then this whole section is going to come off. Move this screw, pull the hose, and then this little kind of harness right here holding this hose on. You go underneath here, squeeze it in and lift at the same time. And then this section here comes out. We have these 2 solenoids right here. We're going to disconnect those. Just push down on the tab, pull straight back. Same with this one. Push down on the tab, pull straight back. And then just kind of route these wires around. You kind of put it underneath here to keep those out of our way. And now we're going to disconnect this one here as well. Same thing. Push in, pull straight off. This one doesn't have much room, so we're just going to kind of tuck it down in here. Bring that over and around so that's out of our way. Now this section here has a 10 millimeter bolt right here. We're going to go ahead and loosen up that bolt and take this off. And I'm just going to put this screw back in here instead of having a bunch of screws laying everywhere. Just thread it back in about halfway. That's just one less screw we got to worry about. Now we just need to remove this little vacuum line here. And it's best to kind of grab hold of it rotate it, and pull at the same time. Now next we need to remove this box right here. There's 2 tabs under here. Push those tabs up and it slides off this metal bracket. And now you can just kind of tuck this box in here just so it doesn't flop back in our way. And now it makes it a little easier if we remove this bracket. So there's 2 10mm nuts, one right there, one right there, and then go ahead and remove the metal bracket. You just pull the metal bracket off and thread the nuts back on. That's just 2 lets of nuts. We have to worry about where they go. All right, so now behind the intake is a brake booster hose. You can see my finger right there. I'm touching the hose clamp. So you need to squeeze that hose clamp and slide that brake booster hose off. Now to get back in there, I use these 90-degree angle pliers. These are pretty long. So we'll get right back in there and slide that off. All right, so that's that brake booster hose right there. It's pretty easy to do if you have the 90-degree pliers, kind of long handle. Just slide that right off. So now there's 4 bolts and 2 nuts holding on the intake. So we have a nut here, 2 bolts here, 2 bolts here, and then a nut on the end. All 10mm. We'll go ahead and remove those next. We're going to lift the intake straight up. We can bring it forward about 2-3 inches, and then there's another hose we can get to easier on the back side, and we need to disconnect that. So now with the intake about 3 inches forward, we can get to this hose right here a little easier. I believe it goes to the PCV valve. We're going to loosen up that clamp, slide that off, and remove this hose right here. Now the intake should be completely free after you get that last hose off. So you should just be able to lift up, pull straight out. All right, so now before we go too far, I put tape over top of here so nothing's going to fall in the holes. And while we're in here, we might as well change out that PCV valve, which is right here. We're just simply going to unscrew and screw a new one on. And there's the part number if you're going to go to like Advanced Auto or somewhere and get a CarQuest part. It's PCA 1056. You see that O-ring right here on the bottom of the PCV valve? You just want to put a little bit of silicone grease on that O-ring and then we'll thread it in. And now this is all plastic threads, plastic housing. All you want to do is get it hand tight and go about 1/4 of a turn. You don't want to over tighten this. All right, so those fuel injection dampers are right here. We actually have to take these screws out and it kind of goes in from the bottom. And then you have another one right here. It's a lot easier to just lift the fuel rail. So we have 1 bolt here, 1 here, 1 right there. These are all 12mm, by the way. There's 1 right there. We're just going to loosen all those up, and then we can lift the fuel rail up, and then we can get to them a lot easier. If you want, you can try to change these without lifting it, but it's a pain in the butt to get to this one. This one's slightly easier. But I'm going to loosen all this, lift the fuel rail up, and then we can change them. All right, so once you got the 4 bolts loosened up, you can pull off the harnesses from the fuel injectors. And then it works best if you wedge like a flathead screwdriver underneath there and kind of pop these up. They are sealed in with an O-ring, so you got to kind of wiggle and pull at the same time. And now we can get to the 2 fuel injection dampers. 1mm screws. Falls down because there should be just a little bit of fuel come out of here. This is sealed in with an O-ring, so you kind of got to pry and pull at the same time. And that's what the fuel injection damper looks like. And there's the part number to the new fuel injection dampers. And we have the new one. You want to put a little bit of O-ring grease on there and go ahead and reinstall. Now we need to do the same thing to this back one. I got my paper towel stuffed down in there. Same thing. All we have to do is turn this over and insert the injectors back into location. Tighten it down, plug them all back in. $12mm to 15 foot-pounds. Go ahead and plug all the fuel injectors back in. Make sure you hear them snap into place. Now we're going to install the new intake manifold gaskets. You can see these original ones are orange. I only use Felpro gaskets. These are the blue ones. So these little tabs, you just kind of lift this up. Go ahead and peel out the old. And then you're going to want to put some O-ring grease on the new ones. All right, I've got the new gaskets installed, so now we can go ahead and reassemble. I still have my black tape covering the holes. I've got a paper towel laying in there. So I'm going to lay the intake on there, and then I'm going to connect those hoses right there. Those are the tricky ones that are hard to get on and off. It's a lot easier to do it now than when you put the intake back on. I've got the intake laying there on top of the paper towels. As you can see, back in there, I've got the brake booster hose and that PCV valve hose connected. Heck of a lot easier to do it now than later. Just lifting up the intake, got my paper towel out of the way. Go ahead and remove this tape. Studs on each end. And just let it drop down into place. Intake bolts and nuts on. All I'm doing is just tightening it up by hand. Kind of moving around back and forth, going in a crisscross pattern. I'm just going to get this as tight as I can with my fingers, and then we're going to torque those down. Now we need to torque the 6 fasteners holding down the intake. I'm going to start in the middle. I'm going to go to 5 foot-pounds. I'm going to do 5 foot-pounds for every bolt and nut. We're going to go back over them again at 8 foot-pounds. Go ahead and put this bracket back on. Then you just line up the box with these 2 tabs and it should click right in place. Reinstall this bracket. Take that screw out that we left in there. You plug these 2 back in. This little hose back on. Now we can reattach this assembly. We got a screw there, we got a hose there. This here is going to go down the clip, and then this hose here is going to attach at the back. Turn this in. Got the zip ties holding the throttle body out of our way. Now we can install the 4 bolts holding on the throttle body. Now we're going to install the upper air box. Then we tighten up that hose clamp. And then plug in your mass airflow sensor. Clip the top to the bottom of the airbox. This tube, slide over the clamp. The engine cover. 4 bolts holding that on. Install this front airbox. Two 10mm screws. Let's see if she'll run. Go ahead and close up the hood. Make sure you don't have any tools laying around on here before you close it. There's to it, guys. Hopefully this step-by-step video helped you out and you can get your vehicle back on the road and running a little quieter, a little smoother, and a little longer. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.